I liked Homecoming and I really liked Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Maybe my favorite character in the MCU after the whole shake-up that was Endgame. It's a character I actually care about, and Tom Holland's charisma has a lot to do with that. And now he's back for a second movie, as expected, as is director John Watts, who before Homecoming actually made a little movie called Cop Car with Kevin Bacon, which I liked quite a bit too. But this time around we also have Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, a character I knew nothing about, but if Jake Gyllenhaal's playing him, I was all for it. I hadn't even seen the trailer for this, but from the few things I'd seen, it looked like we'd be taking a step back, scaling things down a little bit. Keeping things firmly on Earth, fighting forces that aren't quite on the level of Thanos. And yeah, this movie did that. It keeps things a little bit more grounded. Just what I personally want from a teenage Spider-Man, to be honest. He doesn't need to be out in space fighting galactic level villains. There are plenty of other characters that can do that sort of thing. And in this one, the story basically focuses on Peter Parker just wanting a normal life. He did the big superhero stuff and now he just wants to be a teenager. And he goes on this school trip to Europe with his class. He's trying to just take it easy for a while, to relax. Take a bit of a well-deserved break and a well-earned vacation. Well, how do you think that turns out? Yeah, not exactly what I would call a relaxing vacation. Because evil doesn't rest and there's always gonna be a villain that needs defeating. So yeah, even though this does take a step back, that's not to say it lacked spectacle. I mean, especially toward the end there, it got pretty hectic. And while I do think the team behind that last battle sequence did a fantastic job, it got to be a tad bit too much for my personal preferences. They could have toned it down a tiny bit, just a smidge. Because I was honestly ready for it to be over about halfway through. That being said, it was absolutely a great spectacle, purely visually. But I don't really need quite that much of it, so yeah, not ideal. But I would also say that that was kinda the only part of the movie I didn't fully enjoy. Because I thought the rest of it was fun, very entertaining. I had a good time with it and it was surprisingly funny too. And a lot more elaborate than I expected, as far as the story went. There were a number of twists and turns that kept it interesting throughout. I liked that because a lot of these superhero movies are just a little bit too straightforward. There usually aren't that many surprises or things to keep you on your toes. This one did manage to do that better than most though. So kudos to the writers, they did a really good job keeping it entertaining. From the character interactions to the story, I thought it was really well handled. It actually felt like a bit of a throwback, almost like a standalone movie. I mean, there were clear tie-ins to the rest of the MCU and all that. It's to be expected. And I do hope we get to see this iteration of Spider-Man play a bigger role going forward. But still, most of this felt like a self-contained little story that didn't play that big of a role in the grand scheme of things. It more hints at things to come than anything else. It's basically starting to lay the groundwork for the future, without that stuff taking over and hijacking what is essentially just a story about a kid. A kid who's just struggling to be a teenager and is trying to find a way to balance that with being a superhero. So yeah, I enjoyed this for the most part and didn't have any major issues with it. And I think we'll see quite a bit more of Tom Holland's Spider-Man before it's all said and done. They've got a real gem on their hands here and I hope they utilize it well. But would I recommend this one? Sure, why not? It's a fun movie. Or you could just skip it, I guess. After all, I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to go on a trip across Europe. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.